Hello world, welcome to episode 90 of the Jimmy Canz Show. Classic Supercard Retrospective time. Clash of the Champions 10, Texas Shootout. Let's talk about it. All right. So Texas Shootout was a NWA event promoted by World Championship Wrestling, held on February 6th, 1990 from the Memorial Coliseum in Corpus Christi, Texas. Was broadcast live on TBS Superstation. Attendance was 3,000. The action was called by Jim Ross, James E. Cornette. 7-match card here. Card included a title versus masks match for the NWA World Tag Team Championships, as well as a 6-man tag cage match between Gary Hart International and the Horsemen, amongst other matches. Let's get into it. We've got some matches to talk about. All right. The opening contest was a singles match. Saw Dr. Death, Steve Williams, taking on the Samoan Savage with the big kahuna Sir Oliver Humperdinck in his corner. Pretty decent opener here. About an 8-minute match. Dr. Death gets the win in this one, kind of utilizing more of his technical skill over just the pure brute brawling power of the Savage when he gets a backslide on the Savage for the 3 count and the win. So that was your winner of the opening contest, Dr. Death Steve Williams. And then before the second match kicks off, we get the interview segment with Terry Funk conducting an interview with the Horsemen. This is the infamous Horsemen segment where, Foley pretty much takes over the segment, stating that Sting is out as a Horseman for accepting the championship match against Flair for his victory at Starrcade in the Iron Man tournament. So he's out of the Horsemen regardless, and that he has just 2 hours to relinquish that world title opportunity. And Sting starts complaining, which eventually leads to, the Horsemen attacking Sting and beating him down and reiterating that he has 2 hours to relinquish the matchup. So, like I said, that was, the big thing really in this entire show is that segment and the dominoes that fall as a result of it. We'll get into it a little more down the road. So next up, second contest was a tag team contest. Team Flying Brian Pillman and the Z-Man taking on the Mod Squad, Spike and Basher. Ross spent a good amount of time, really most of the match, building up the duo of Pillman and Z-Man and their participation in the upcoming United States Tag Team Championship tournament. The Mod Squad, really was just a named enhancement team. I don't remember them ever doing much of anything, but this obviously was, a contest to help feature Pillman and Z-Man. They end up getting the win in this one to no one's real major surprise. So after that tag team contest, we get a really interesting matchup. The Mexican luchador legend, Mil Mascaras, taking on a very young Mick Foley. And Foley, right at this point in time, is under his Cactus Jack Manson gimmick. Like I said, very young Foley, but, very typical Foley. He takes some pretty crazy bumps in this one. Infamously, I think this match probably remembered for the rather nasty bump he took on the floor, unprotected, landing on his head on the concrete. He tried to do kind of like a somersault kind of senton-y type thing off the apron on a Massacres, who moves out of the way, and he cracks his head on the exposed concrete. Ugh, was pretty vicious. After that, Massacres capitalizes on the situation and wins the contest with flying cross body. And I think, this was probably then because, Jack wasn't under an actual full contract with WCW at the time. The other thing that kind of annoyed me with this match was, throughout the match, Cornette continually referring to Massacres as Massacres. I mean, it was just, I don't think it was a deliberate burial or mocking. It was just the way he was pronouncing Massacres very badly. Massacres. I mean, come on, you're better than that, corny. But it just really irked me, got on my nerves watching the show. And like I said, Jack's not under contract, probably explains why Massacres got the win. Post-match, Jack gets into it with the drummer from the Tough Guys band, which was really just viewing JT Southern going by the name of Wolf Wild. And, nothing really came of this. Southern as Wolf Wild, was in WCW for a while. This was kind of his debut, whereas Jack ended up leaving WCW shortly after this for a while for the UWF, and then Tri-State shortly after that. And, like I said, Southern was there for a while, but he never really did much with his time in Turnerland. So, all in all, nothing really came out of this match. There were aspirations for things, but nothing came to any kind of real fruition. So you have that. Next up, we have a Falls Count Anywhere matchup between a now babyface Norman the Lunatic against Kevin Sullivan. Talk about gimmicks that didn't age well. Thankfully, we aren't too far from them dropping the lunatic aspect from Norman's gimmick entirely, but it's still there at this point in time. And like I said, this is a Falls Count Anywhere matchup. So not surprisingly, it spills out of the ring around the arena and goes to the back, where it eventually goes to a women's restroom. And, they go behind a closed door. We just hear a bunch of racket and noise. And then, it is stated by the official that Norman is the winner. As Sullivan is seen staggering out of the restroom, collapsing on the floor, and Norman comes out holding a toilet seat and some toilet paper. So, yeah, there was that. Like I said, yeah. Next up was a big beefy tag team battle. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, with Precious Paul Ellering in their corner, taking on Theodore R. Long's Skyscrapers. And now the Skyscrapers are consisting of Dangerous Dan Spivey and one mean Mark Callis. Sid has left the company and been replaced. And a young Mark Calloway under his mean Mark Callis gimmick is now in the fold here. What can you say about this one? It was a typical kind of Road Warriors match where, it just kind of all breaks down in chaos. The Road Warriors end up getting the win in this matchup via DQ when the Skyscrapers get a steel folding chair and end up wearing out both Hawk and Animal with the chair before, heading to the back. Honestly, looking at the way, this was inked and booked, the powers that be kind of painted themselves in a corner here as, you want both these teams are monster teams. So how can you get out of this without one team, looking weak? This was probably the best way to do it. You have the Road Warriors getting the win, but the Skyscrapers, not taking a fall in, determining the outcome, and can, walk out, we're the baddest guys around here, blah, 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 blah. And the Road Warriors can turn around and say, hey, you didn't beat us. You could, hang with us. You needed a steel chair. So, it was the only way to kind of get out of this one without making either team look weak. They're trying to really build skyscrapers, but the Road Warriors are, the legit built up monster team. So which way do you go? But, we're not too far off from the Road Warriors deciding to part ways from Turnerland here. Happens in a few months, but there you have it. Next up was the NWA World Tag Team Championships versus the Masks match. As the champions, Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers, defended against the team of Doom, now a managerless Doom at this point in time. Doom 1, Doom 2, still at this point. We're going to find out the worst kept secret in wrestling here shortly. Spoilers, obviously. But anyway, again, this is our second match in a row of two big beefy tag teams doing battle. But he said there's some back and forth, pretty solid match. All in all, the end comes here where prior to the actual pinfall, Rick rips off the mask of Doom 1 and reveals him to be none other than Hacksaw Butch Reed. Oh, geez, there's a real big surprise. And Reed, kind of freaks out when his mask is pulled off. He turns around to apologize profusely to his partner. And the Steiners capitalize and push Reed into his partner, then resulting in a roll-up for the three and a title retention. So, one member of Doom has already been unmasked, and now the other member is forced to unmask as well, stating that both men will be suspended if, the other one does not unmask. He does and reveals himself to be shocker, Ron Simmons. So now, going forward, Doom will be competing as Butch Reed and Ron Simmons in an unmasked gimmick. But there you have that. And then last but not least was our 6-man tag team steel cage match. The team of the Horsemen, represented by NWA World Champion Nature Boy Ric Flair, and the Andersons, Foley, and the NWA World Television Champion, the Enforcer AA Arn Anderson, taking on the team of Gary Hart International, who were represented by none other than the Dragon Master, Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, and the Great Muta, who have obviously Gary Hart with them, as they are Gary Hart International. This one honestly is a very odd match, as obviously the match was announced and set up with the Horsemen, as the baby faces, but then they turned around and turned heel earlier that evening. So, when they kicked Sting out and beat him down. So now you're going into this match and you've got two heel teams against each other, and the crowd doesn't know what to do. You have to look at, the time frame that we're in, the territory that we're in. The company. You don't cheer. You don't cheer the heels, and you got two heel teams here. So the crowd just didn't know what to do throughout this match. The other thing that was really kind of bizarre in this match is it's a cage match, yet it was operated under traditional 6-man tag rules with, tags in and out during a cage match, which was just odd to see. Anyway, long story short, match going on. As match is going on, eventually Sting comes out and attempts to enter the cage. He's pulled back by security. Still, Flair and him are still jawing at each other, screaming. Sting breaks free from security, charges the ring a second time, and this ends up being a big mistake, legitimately, as he ends up really blowing out his knee, attempting to get into the ring the second time. you see him go down, not being able to put any weight on the one leg, and they're trying to get him to the back when the end of the match happens. And again, this is another kind of sudden, no real build to the finish type situation here, whereas all of a sudden Arn hits a DDT on the Dragon Master and ends up getting the 3 count. And what was even odder with it was the fact that as Arn was covering Dragon Master, Buzz Sawyer is standing there in the ring and just watches the cover happen. There was nothing between him and Arn and him, breaking up the pin other than himself knowing the actual finish and not doing it. It just looked really bad. Like I said, just bad execution there at the end. They needed to figure out something better, a better way to end that. But anyway, post-match, Flair exits the cage and not knowing that Sting has legitimately injured himself, ends up charging Sting and jumping at him, almost landing on his back, which would have been really bad. So, chaos ensues there at the end with that as, the credits start to roll. So yeah, old classic WCW events that actually had credits at the end. Anyway, there you have it. It was a so-so show here, I'll be honest. As is normal in Turnerland, this time, in my opinion, way too many tag matches. All right. You had 3 normal tag matches and a 6-man tag match on a 7-match show. So you have 4 tag team contests out of 7. Again, the other thing, it's just 1 title defense on a show that you call Clash of the Champions, and I'm not against not having a lot of title matches, but then change the name of the show. It just seems silly to keep calling it Clash of the Champions when you're not putting championship matches on it. Anyway, sudden abrupt finish, honestly, even though it was a decent match, it was just a sudden finish in the opener, a sudden finish in, the main event, a finish in the Falls Count Anywhere match where you don't see anything. It happens behind closed doors. Just weird. The unmasking of Doom, that was a decent thing. It helped propel them. So that was a plus. But, honestly, the show, like all clashes, was a setup for the next pay-per-view. And it really is remembered for the Horsemen Sting breakup segment and the dominoes that fell as a result of it, which it did well. Sting was lined up for that title shot against Flair at the upcoming Wrestle War, but, his knee situation when he attempted that second run into the cage, obviously, plans, to pass the torch to Sting had to be sidelined. They had a audible out, and they end up audibling to United States champion Total Package Lex Luger, taking on Flair at Wrestle War, while Sting recuperates from this knee injury. They'll eventually get to where they want to go, but this threw a monkey wrench in their plans for sure. But anyway, getting back to the real crux of it, like I said, so-so show, kind of did what it's supposed to do. So got my 10 belt scale here. I'll give Clash of the Champions 10 Texas Shootout a 5 out of 10. Story-wise, it was solid. But, the matches and most of the finishes in the show were just not that great, all in all. But, it did what it was set out to do. It was a decent setup show, which is what it's supposed to be. So that's why it's not dinged too much, but it was just middle of the road. honestly. And if they hadn't set the wheels in motion as well as they had, it would be down. So honestly, this one, and I just did 1990 Royal Rumble before this. These were two shows that were more story than substance. But anyway, next up in the well, before I get into the next up, just a quick funny side note here, as I just mentioned the WWF as well. It's funny, kind of the parallel right now going on between the WWF and WCW here as we enter 1990, as both these companies are now poised to make the two former partners of the Blade Runners the faces of their company, as WWF is ready to, go into the Warrior era, and WCW is ready for the Sting era. So one, you can argue, was a bit more successful than the other, but that one ends up kind of being delayed, as we mentioned before, due to an actual injury. And other, well, we'll discuss that one later. Anyway, up next, Santa Classic Supercard Retrospective, we will discuss WCW Wrestle War 90, Wild Thing, and following that, back over in the land of McMahon, we will discuss WrestleMania 6, The Ultimate Challenge. So there you have it. Give the channel a like, a share, a subscribe, wherever you are. I hope you are doing well. Take care of one another, and I will see you all when I see you.